The dust swirled around his worn boots as he crested the final hill, the twin suns of Kepler 442 casting long shadows across the desolate landscape. Below him lay what the star charts called Outpost Omega 7, though the locals, if any remained, simply called it the end. He had no name that mattered anymore. The galaxy had stripped that from him along with everything else. But the locals who whispered of his approach called him simply the human, and that was enough. The outpost sprawled before him like a mechanical graveyard, its skeletal towers reaching toward a sky that had forgotten the meaning of hope. Alien architecture melded with human engineering in a desperate symphony of survival, creating structures that defied logic but somehow still stood against the cosmic winds. As he descended the rocky slope, movement caught his eye. Two figures emerged from behind a collapsed communications array, a young woman with auburn hair tied back in a practical ponytail, and a man whose weathered face spoke of countless battles, fought and barely won. "You're late," the woman called out, her voice carrying across the wasteland with surprising strength. She wore the faded uniform of the Terran Colonial Defense Force, though her rank insignia had long since been torn away. "Time's relative out here, Liza," the man beside her said, checking the power cell on his plasma rifle. "Besides, James, we weren't exactly going anywhere." The stranger, the human, approached with measured steps, his long coat billowing in, the artificial wind generated by the outpost's failing atmospheric processors. His eyes, pale as winter ice, took in every detail. The defensive positions they'd established, the jury-rigged equipment humming with barely contained energy, and most importantly, the sleek starship that waited in the center of the compound, like a silver promise of escape. "That's quite a ship," he said, his voice carrying the weight of distant stars and forgotten worlds. Liza stepped forward, her hand resting on the grip of her sidearm, not threateningly, but ready. "It's not ours. Showed up 3 days ago just after the Zephyrian fleet retreated. No pilot, no crew, just waiting." "Waiting for what?" the human asked, though something in his expression suggested he already knew. James spat into the dust, his augmented leg servos whirring as he shifted his weight. "That's what we've been trying to figure out. Ship's got Terran markings, but the design's like nothing in our databases. And get this, it won't respond to anyone, won't even power up except what?" Liza's green eyes narrowed as she studied the newcomer. "Except when you got within 50 kilometers. Then it started humming, started singing almost." The human's weathered hand touched something hidden beneath his coat, a small device that pulsed with the same rhythm as his heartbeat. The last gift from a dying civilization, they'd called it. The key to humanity's final chapter. "The architects," he said quietly. "They knew this day would come." The ship's hull suddenly blazed with ethereal light, ancient symbols cascading across its surface like liquid starfire. The air itself seemed to vibrate with power as the vessel's systems awakened after eons of slumber. James raised his weapon, instinctively, but Liza held up a hand. "Wait, look at the symbols. They weren't alien at all. Hidden within the flowing script were human mathematical constants, star charts of Earth's local group and something else, DNA sequences that spelled out a single word in the universal language of genetics. Home. Impossible," James breathed. "Humanity barely made it to the outer colonies before the Zephyrian War started. We don't have technology like this." The human smiled for the first time since his arrival, an expression both sad and infinitely proud. "We don't, but we will." The ship's boarding ramp descended with a whisper of perfectly calibrated hydraulics. The interior gleamed with technology that seemed grown rather than built, organic curves meeting precise engineering in ways that spoke to the eye like poetry. "It's from the future," Liza realized, her scientific mind racing to comprehend the implications. Something sent it back. "Not something," the human corrected, pulling the device from his coat. It was a small crystalline matrix that pulsed with the same light as the ship's systems. "Someone. Us. Humanity's children, reaching back through time to ensure their own existence." He stepped toward the ship, and the crystal in his hand resonated, with increasing intensity. The galaxy thinks it's seen the last of humanity. The Zephyrians, the Void Lords, the entropy cults, they all believe they've witnessed our final defeat. The ship's engines began to spin up, creating a harmony that seemed to resonate in the very atoms of the air around them. James felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. "They're wrong, aren't they?" Liza asked, though her tone suggested it wasn't really a question. The human turned back to them, and for a moment they saw not the weathered wanderer who had emerged from the wasteland, but something else. A representative of humanity's indomitable will, the living embodiment of their species' refusal to quietly fade into extinction. "Humanity doesn't end with a whimper," he said, his voice carrying the authority of absolute certainty. "We end with the heat death of the universe itself, and even then, we'll find a way to light one last candle, in the darkness." The ship's systems fully awakened, and suddenly the dead outpost blazed with life. Emergency power grids that had been dark for months surged back online. Communication arrays long thought destroyed began broadcasting across the galaxy. Not distress signals, but something far more dangerous to humanity's enemies: a call to arms. "All stations," Liza's voice carried across the restored communications network, her words reaching human outposts scattered across 1,000 light-years of hostile space. "This is Outpost Omega-7. The cavalry has arrived. Humanity's last stand begins now." The human smiled again as he stepped aboard the impossible ship. "No," he said, his voice carrying to every human ear in the galaxy. "Humanity's first step into forever begins now." Behind them, the twin suns set on what had been the galaxy's last lost outpost. By the time they rose again, it would be the first beacon of humanity's new age.